Welcome to Words of the Prophets, a podcast where we discuss the latest talks from the General Conference of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. My name is Todd, and today, sitting next to me, the prodigal podcaster returns.
Wow. How long have you been waiting to? How many weeks ago did you think of that joke?
Well, you tell me, how many weeks have you not been podcasting with us? That's how long.
Sorry, for those of us who don't know him, can you introduce him to the podcast?
Wow.
Yeah, only people who have listened to every single podcast, because if you missed the one time he was on, you know.
Okay. Smoking bullets flying around today, man.
This is my son, Lawson, who recorded a few and then had a little thing come up. What happened? Where were you?
Well, school started this past week.
Oh my gosh.
That's the reason.
I preemptively 3 weeks beforehand, I started to store up all of my focus.
Yeah.
So I've been in hibernation, waiting for this moment to come.
You remember when he was getting married and he refused to admit it, and now that he is married, he's still refusing to admit it? He got married.
I got married.
Yeah.
The most important thing that's ever happened to me, but I like to pretend it didn't. Just because comedic reasons, not because of any emotional reasons.
Oh, man, I
We
can't
should probably
take it.
move on now.
We should.
Here there
we
be
should.
dragons.
Kate, I hope you're not listening to this.
Kate, if you're listening, I love you. Thank you for doing the dishes, because I hate doing them. And welcome for doing sourdough bread.
It's an equal partnership.
All right.
It is.
I'm definitely moving on now. And we also have with us today Alia. How are you today, Alia?
I'm doing great.
Awesome. Alia is my daughter, for those who are unaware.
Wait, what?
Yeah, I know. It's odd.
Oh my
It's
gosh.
how that happens. We also have today Rivka and Burke. How are you guys today? Burke, how are you?
Fantastic.
Your sound is so rich and beautiful. Explain.
I have a sound booth now.
Nice. I love it.
I got it for my daughter, of course.
Indeed.
But
Of
everyone in the
course.
family has used it thus far, except I think maybe Rivka. It's lovely.
Yeah, I don't
Yeah.
get up there much.
Anyway,
Great. Okay. That's a
I
succinct
wasn't-
explanation.
I was
that makes our
I was
house
in a-
sound really big.
It does. Like, I don't go to
No.
the East Wing very often.
I do not. That's true. I don't want to see how messy it is, you know? Like, I
Yeah.
can really live in denial if I'm never somewhere where everyone else lives.
I like that.
I don't. This sounds like the Beast.
This is sage
from Beauty
advice.
to the Beast.
It does,
explaining his rationale.
It does, right.
Yeah, well, this
Are
was
you calling
actually...
me the Beast? Is that what is happening right here?
You're the one who doesn't want to go to the East Wing or the West Wing or whatever it is.
It is
Only
coming
before
from
8 a.m.
It is coming from all the Ebert men today. That's
Anyway,
We're on fire today, man.
Yeah, it's this boom. All right, okay, people, we're locking in now. Burke, you going to tell us about the sound booth?
it was a Kickstarter project that came flat packed from South Korea and was very reasonably priced. And it was one of those things. I saw it and I measured a spot in my house and it fit. And I was like, yeah, I just ordered it. And
Yeah.
then my son assembled it this last week. So it's been very little work for me, but it's great to use. So
Aaliyah, you do not have room for something like that, but you need something like that.
No.
they make a
would love
smaller
something like
size.
that.
Yeah.
Comes in
She
3 sizes.
literally, for a job, sings into a microphone in her closet.
Yep.
I'm not
I pull a chair
exaggerating.
into my closet every day and I sing in my closet for hours.
Yep. And when no one has ever asked me if we make money on this podcast, because it's obvious that we don't. But if they did, I would say, no, we lose money. And now we have another reason why we lose money.
Yeah.
Because we're buying supplies for the podcast. So, well, let us move on to our actual talk today. This will be the last talk we do before General Conference. So the next thing after this, we'll take a little break and then we'll do a little General Conference recap. And it's appropriate that we have Lawson here today, the newly married, and Alia is still kind of a newlywed, because we're going to discuss a talk called Some Things We Have Learned Together by Jeffrey R. and Patricia T. Holland from a BYU speech, and somehow I just lost the year a long time ago.
1985.
Thank you.
Wow.
submitted to us by none other than Santa Claus himself, Santa Sean. So we actually have queued some other submissions from other people. So next conference, when we get through all the talks, we'll come back and do some more. And this whole talk is a fun, interesting style where they spoke together at a BYU devotional when Elder Holland was a president of BYU, and sort of took turns, went back and forth, and just talked about things they've learned in marriage. So Lawson, you're the marriage expert. Tell us what was your fundamental doctrine from this talk?
Okay, my fundamental doctrine. No, I was trying to find just before this started, I was looking through it again to try and find the exact quote, but I couldn't find it. So here's the doctrine.
Yeah, let me pause and explain. Unless you like download the PDF and then save it as a separate thing that you can edit, it's not like reading a conference talk. It's not in the app.
Yeah.
So you're just looking at a web page and you can't highlight that. So that's why he's talking like that. Okay, go.
You can if you print it out on paper. Just saying.
Well, I just found it in the last 10 seconds, so paper takes another L.
Found your paper right here.
Okay. Here is my fundamental doctrine. It was a whole probably third of the talk, which is discussing this point. Every mortal marriage is to recreate the ideal marriage sought by Adam and Eve, by Jehovah and the children of Israel, with no hanging back, cleaving unto none other. Each fragile human spirit is left naked, as it were, in the custody of its marriage partner. Surely that is a risk. Certainly it is an act of faith, but the risk is central to the meaning of the marriage, and the faith moves mountains and calms the turbulent sea.
So this is an amazing, as a parent, moment watching the difference between my two kids. As much as Alia likes the 6 words or less succinct fundamental doctrine where it's like, just do the right thing, Lawson likes the complex, Old Testament-y, wrapped in layers of meaning, symbolic,
I think
all
it's
these
just
things.
because my symbolic and gospel literacy is a little bit higher than Alia's.
Wow.
So,
And it continues. So,
Dang.
Lawson, that was a deep and complex statement, so I need you to unpack it for me. It was excellent, but I need some explanation.
okay. The biggest thing that stands out to me about this fundamental doctrine that he kind of elaborates on in the rest of the talk is the idea of risk and vulnerability. He uses even the example of Adam and Eve being in the garden were literally naked, like they had nothing to hide, and they were innocent, so they had nothing that they could hide. And we know that we're supposed to become like little children, be innocent and pure. And I think really the only way to do that is to share those vulnerabilities and risks with other people, which is a big part of marriage. For me, definitely, newly married, as aforementioned. Just sharing myself with Kate and having her share herself with me in a way that we haven't done with anybody else in the entire world is the most rewarding part of it. And it's also a huge risk. It also hurts and is super big and scary sometimes. And that's just kind of how it is, right? Opposition. The most painful, risky thing requires the most faith and is therefore the most rewarding.
That was a great explanation. Bachikia. Yeah, nice. Okay, awesome. I love that. Alia, let's go on to you. What was your fundamental doctrine?
All right. Patricia, Pat, says, God expects a marriage, not just a temple-sanctioned understanding or arrangement.
Ooh.
And I thought that was really cool.
A little Bednar-y there.
Yeah.
So tell me why that stood out to you.
Because it makes a distinction between a temple-sanctioned understanding / arrangement and a marriage. Just because you're sealed doesn't mean you have a marriage, is essentially what she's saying. And so the differing factor there is what Lawson was just talking about, that there's this full commitment, and She says it's not marriage unless we literally share each other, the good times and the bad, the sickness and the health, the life and the death. It is not marriage unless I am there for him whenever he needs me. So, you gotta go all in. It's like commit to the poor or commit to the bit, or, you know, it's all those little idioms we use.
So that's sort of the other side of the coin that Lawson's talking about. So, it's you're saying that or she's saying, and you're also saying, it's not just like getting married in the temple and then you just share a bank account and raise your kids together. You're really committing to each other, and that's part of your covenant. But what Lawson's saying to that is it's risky and it's hard, but that's the most valuable part of it.
It's like making a covenant with God. You're furthering your relationship as long as you commit to it, but there are consequences if you then back off of that covenant, and if you're being casual about it.
Tell me what it would look like to be casual about it.
In a marriage?
Yeah.
I think not putting effort towards progressing as a couple or being a better spouse, or I don't know. I think it could be easy to just have the same vibe as a roommate.
Yeah.
So you have to create quality time and space to foster your relationship in whatever way it needs, and be always stretching yourself to be better for the other person.
Awesome. I love it. Okay, Rivka and Burke, these young whippersnappers are newly married. They seem pretty wise about marriage already, don't they? Alia points to her brain. We attribute all that to Deanna, who is the most, what's the right word? Marriage intentional person that we know. Like her marriage is the most important thing to her. I know that I'm talking about my own spouse, so it sounds a little weird, but it's so important to her. Not I'm important to her, but the marriage health and relationship is so important to her. And she makes it intentional, and we work on it. And sometimes it's great, and sometimes it's not as great, as Elder Holland and Sister Holland talk about in here as well. So I love everything you guys said. Fantastic. And you've learned what they've learned. So let's move to Rivka. What was your fundamental doctrine?
They talk about three different, three big different topics. And so we've been talking about the third one? The third one. So I'm going to skip to the first one.
Okay.
If you were to make a list, there would be 1, 2, and 3. Then on 3, we're going to go back to 1. Yes.
He says this is our first piece of counsel, okay? Elder Holland made the list. I'm just standing in line with a future apostle, all right?
The third was intimacy, by the way. That's what they called it.
Yes.
Yeah.
And not just physical, but just the whole
intimacy
meaning
in
of
marriage.
that word.
Yeah. Yep. Number 2 is finances, spoiler alert. But number 1, this is what he says. Don't rush things needlessly and unnaturally. Now, he is talking to college students. And so they are discussing a little bit about, like, you know, you're thinking about getting married. You're looking for, you know, that person. And some of you maybe need a little push. And some of you maybe need to not worry about, you know, the timing as much. Don't get stressed out. Some of you stress out a little bit, you know, anyway, but overall, the counsel is don't rush things needlessly and unnaturally. Nature has its rhythms and its harmonies, and we would do well to fit ourselves as best we can with those cycles rather than frantically throwing ourselves against them. Now, that is good advice to people who are considering marriage and beginning a life together. But it's also really great advice 20 years into a marriage, you know, and 30 years into a marriage, because that doesn't just stop then. Once you're married, you're just in the marriage cycle, but life cycles, you know, you have cycles of having children or wanting children and having that struggle. You have the cycle of the children flying the nest. You have the cycle of you know, like I watch my parents and theirs, which is, both of them are experiencing health problems. And so a lot of their marital time is spent taking care of each other. And so there's just all these different cycles that happen. And so I think this advice to fit ourselves with the cycles rather than fighting against them, fighting against the passing of time or wishing things were different than they are. We're all going to feel that at times, but losing yourself in the wishing things were different than they were, or anyway. Yeah, I just think that's good advice.
I'm wishing. Alia, you missed your cue. You're supposed to be the echo.
For the one I love. There you go.
So, Rivka, I love this idea. What would it look like to sort of rush or fight against the cycles? Can you give me an example or two?
Well, initially they're talking about like this feeling of like, I need to get married. When am I going to find my, person, which has this back and forth between them as they're talking, which is really cute and gets one of the biggest laughs, when they're like 21 years old, like fretting. And then he says 24 and Pat, like meaning age 24. And Pat's like, death make me thine, which I thought was hilarious. So there is that part of it where we tend to live a lot of our lives hoping for the next thing or working toward the next thing. And that's going to be the time when, we feel happy or complete, or that's the thing I'm waiting for. And that's the thing I'm waiting for. And then you get there and then it's the next thing that you're waiting for. And so, once you get married, then it's like, let's have kids. And some people like Burke and I, we didn't have a problem with that. We were like, we should have a kid. And then a kid came. But a lot of people don't, have a different experience. And so then there's this wait, like we will be, complete, or maybe our marriage or our home will start, our marriage will start when the kid comes. And if that doesn't happen for a while, you're not in that moment, you're not in that marriage, or you're waiting for your kids to grow up, or you cannot wait for them to leave and get out of the house so you can do stuff, but then they're gone. And do you know what I mean? Like, it's just, I think his whole point is find a way. Well, and I think he says it in here somewhere, and I should have marked it, but he talks about finding a way to, here we go. Life ought to be enjoyed at every stage of our experience and should not be hurried and wrenched and truncated and torn to fit an unnatural schedule which you have predetermined, but which may not be the Lord's personal plan for you at all. We're all going to hit that. Many times you're gonna have that experience before marriage, and then if marriage is a thing that is part of your mortal experience, it's going to happen multiple times throughout your marriage in a lot of different ways, and it'll happen individually and together. You can have individual goals and hopes and things you're going for that happen or that don't happen, and this is just a thing that's going to happen with life. So this advice: enjoy life at every stage and try to appreciate the cycle or the season that you're in, instead of just spending all of your energy wishing you weren't in it.
So this is a Holland-esque way of saying, accept the Lord's timing for you as an individual and your spouse as a couple.
Mm-hmm.
Can I comment on this too?
And your spouse in your marriage, but I think also, and your spouse. Accept the Lord's timing for your spouse. Because do you know what I mean? Like, the timing for your marriage, but we're different. I mean, Burke and I are different people. And we are different people now than we were when we got married 21 years ago. We are not the same people individually. True. And you grow and change, and you do that individually and you do it together. So there's a lot of different timing that you get to try to figure out what the Lord wants, and maybe not you.
Okay. Love it. Alia, what were you going to add?
I think, having seen this in some of my friends who are in this stage of life, because I just barely moved on from this stage, this kind of rushing and like really wanting to find someone right this second is often, but not always, but often paired with a lack of self-worth because you're not married. I know a lot of friends and people who have been unmarried and wanting or not dating anyone for a long time and they want to be. Sometimes it's just because they want to be with someone and they like romance and they like relationships, but a lot of them, it's because they don't feel like they are worth very much on their own. And if they get married, it'll prove to themselves and everyone else that they're worth something, which is a completely faulty way of thinking. So if you are thinking that, whoever's listening, don't be thinking that. You've got plenty of worth, just you on your own. But yeah, so then that leads to this like rushing, like I have to find someone who will take me right now, because if I don't, that means that every day that someone doesn't accept me, I am worth less, you know, because no one will take me, basically.
And
which is very sad.
That kind of thinking actually continues to have problems after you get married. Like nothing that feels like it will get solved by marriage just like vanishes once you get married. The things just continue, but now they're a problem in the marriage instead of outside of it. So like, like this is something I was talking to my mother, who's very wise and knows everything about marriage, as we've talked about. She was saying like, if you are incomplete by yourself and you like need your spouse to kind of validate your whole existence, then you're just going to be frustrated all the time, because that's not a fair expectation to place on them. Mm-hmm. And so like you need to be complete by yourself in certain ways in order to be able to show up for your spouse, and then you both complete each other.
I have a disagreement with Deanna on this. It's not even I don't know if it's a disagreement.
She told me when we were having this conversation, and Todd would disagree with me on this. But now we're getting it from your side. I'm interested to hear this.
Well, I don't know how to resolve it, and I think intellectually what she says is right, but it does not resonate with me emotionally. I feel like a fairly complete person. I don't feel like I'm waiting for Deanna to validate me as a human to feel like I have worth. I feel like I have worth, and I know that I'm a child of God. That is at the core of my being and defines who I am. But I tell her all the time, like, I am nothing without you. Like, this marriage is everything in my life. And if it is not right, then nothing in my life is right. And so there's this tension there of, so I tell her, to me, it's interdependence, right? I'm not dependent on Deanna to prop me up. I think that's what psychologically you would say. Like, I'm not using her to, I don't have all the words that she has, but I'm not using her to prop me up. But also we're so enmeshed that if you take her away, it's like taking away me too. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So the way I think of it in my mind is the same way that it reads in the scriptures when God is saying, you're everything to me, that all that I have ever done is for you and for your salvation. Also, Moses saying, this thing I never knew, that man is nothing, right? How can those two things be the same thing or true at the same time? It's true that I am trying to be a whole self-actualized individual without Deanna, but I'm nothing without her. So I don't know how to like phrase that in a better way, but.
Well, so I'm wondering if, as you're talking about it, I was just thinking, because I understand this pull that you're having, because I feel that same way where you're just like, what is this? But I'm wondering if it has something to do with the fact that when you are in a marriage, you are assuming a role and an identity. It becomes one of your identities as a spouse. And so if you lose that, you lose that piece of your identity. And that you would probably feel. It doesn't strip you of all the other identities you have, or the most important ones that President Nelson talks about, you know, as a child of God and as a disciple of Jesus Christ. But it is one of those defining features and characteristics about you that, you know, when lost, I think you feel that. You would feel that piece of you, that, you know, that identity that you had in that role gone. I don't know.
The way you're describing that, Rivka, you guys, I have one bag to pull from, and this is the only bag I can pull out. The way you're describing that is when I got released from being bishop. That's my experience, where it didn't stop me from being a whole person who was engaged in the gospel, but it hurt. And it was like a piece of me had died, just, it was grief. It was things I could never, ever get back. Those relationships, that experience, the whole thing, it was gone. It could never return. And it hurt, but it didn't define me as a person, but it was part of my identity. So it hurt to lose it.
Yeah.
So, but obviously my marriage is far, far more important than that. But yeah, interesting tension there. I like your description of it, Rivka. And I hear what Mom is saying too. I think what she's afraid of is generally the world at large, but me as well, like defining who I am based on her solely, or using her support to prop me up in ways that I can't resolve on my own psychologically. So I'm still working. I'm not perfect. I'm always working to be a better person, but she is not the crutch that I use to prop myself up. But at the same time, I just feel like she's my whole world, and without her, I can't imagine life. So, well, I thought it was a really interesting discussion. I think they had their great points to add to that, and their perspective was awesome to hear. We're now going to go to the most patient man in the world, who's been sitting here for 20 plus minutes, doing nothing but looking tremendous with his trimmed, beautiful beard, which just looks fantastic today, Burke. I don't know if you did something recently to it, but it's looking in prime condition. So tell us, what was your fundamental doctrine?
Well, first of all, I look this beautiful every day.
Amen to that. You do. You looking extra beautiful today.
And secondly, there's many forms of this quote, but I think it well addresses the wisdom that Alia and Lawson have already brought on to us. And the variation basically is everyone has a great plan until they get punched in the mouth.
Was that Elder Mike Tyson? Is that what?
I've also heard it as, all generals have great plans until first contact with the enemy,
yes.
Or, whatever.
Right.
So, yeah. But it is correct theory that you have properly relayed to us. I agree with it 100%. And yeah, go forth and experience. And in that vein, I'm going to just read this paragraph here. This is from the beginning. He says, near the beginning. So forgive us for using the only marriage we know, imperfect as it is, but for some time now we have wanted to reflect back on the half of our lives spent together since we were students at BYU, and to see what, if anything, it might mean to you as you look ahead 22 years from now. And what I got from this is if this is the half of their life, that means they're now in their mid-40s, and he's president of BYU. So what have you accomplished with your life?
Bruh.
He went from scared kid, hayseed, barely married, coming up to BYU from St. George, Utah, and 22 years later, he was president. Actually, less than 22 years, because I think this is near the end of his tenure.
Yeah. I mean, he was just an apostle, so don't worry about it.
Yeah. So that's what I took from this.
Indeed. Well, with that, we'll close. Because we've done nothing. We all need to go do something with our lives.
I have to say, if you're going to take advice from two people who probably went through a lot of change and a lot of different things in a very short amount of time, they wouldn't be a bad couple folks to listen to.
Absolutely. And they tell the story of this moment of doubt. And you can combine that with his incredible all-timer talk, High Priest of Good Things to Come, where his car breaks down twice on the side of the road and he just feels like, how are we going to do this? How are we even going to drive to where we need to go? And you can imagine them, this young couple, this young family, just feeling anxiety and concern, and how's it all going to work out? It's so easy to look back 20, 30 years down the road and be like, it all works out. When you're in the moment, Alia and Lawson, JD and K, right in the moment, it's like, it's so much uncertainty, but, take some comfort from Elder Holland and his wife and their experience that it can work out. So I love it. All right. Well, even though we did break it into 3 sections, I don't think we need to follow that structure necessarily. So let's just go around and grab some more quotes here. Lawson, what else really stood out to you?
I got another longish quote
Okay.
here. Well, I guess I'll only do part of it because it's like a whole paragraph. Kind of following up on what I said in the first place. He says, "It would be worth our time with you today if we can impress upon you the sacred obligation a husband and wife have to each other when the fragility and vulnerability and delicacy of the partner's life is placed in the other's keeping." And then he talks about this a lot, but the part that stood out to me the most near the end is he basically says that if he were to mess things up as Pat's husband, then it would disqualify him to be your husband and ought to consign his miserable soul to hell. Woo! So he used pretty strong language to condemn himself were he to fail in this sacred obligation.
So, I mean, that's the perfect follow-up to what you started with about that risk.
Mm-hmm.
So how do we, what's the right word? How do we validate that trust?
I think it just takes old-fashioned time and care. Like, you just have to want to do it and then go do it. Like, there's no secret to the thing, you know? You just really honestly care and you don't have ulterior motives or like all this other junk like clogging up your mind. You just care about the person and then you take care of them. Okay. And, you're going to mess up doing that. But I think if it's genuine, then you just keep going and keep trying and you both forgive and repent. Things work out.
Okay. Lots of forgiveness and repentance. I like that. Alia, let's go to you. What else stood out to you from the talk?
They spent a really long time talking about finances, including some disheartening statistics about the number of divorces that come from disagreements over finance. So Elder Holland says, your religion should protect you against immorality and violence and any number of other family tragedies which strike at marriages throughout the land. And if you will let it, your religion will protect you against financial despair as well. So he talks about budgeting. Pat says, if you've never budgeted, start today. She'd like, do it now, today. They talk about cutting up credit cards, which we haven't physically cut up credit cards, but we've set specific ones aside to not be used. And they talk about not spending more than what your income is and not going into debt and not and paying your tithing, like just being wise stewards of the blessings that God gives us when we work hard. And so religiously, there's a lot of principles there. Even the law of consecration, I would say, would apply. If you're spending your money unwisely, then you're not consecrating the gain God has given you for the good of someone. And, God has been pretty clear about where we should put our money and where we should not put our money. But a lot of it is kind of up in the air. And so we just got to be good with what we've got.
Now that you know the principles, it's pretty easy to do that in marriage, right? Like, that's a snap.
So easy. No problems at all. No tears shed over finances ever.
What makes it hard in a marriage to do?
Disagreements about what is worth spending money on. How can I say? Lack of ability to follow a budget. Just different people with different backgrounds who grew up with their families spending money in different ways or just personally spending money in different ways it's just an adjustment for both parties.
Kind of the same root problem that we've been discussing the whole time, that you're trying to integrate two different people into one system. So any solutions that you have found? Like, what are some things you and JD have done to work together?
Google spreadsheets.
Okay.
We've got, as far as practical things go, I mentioned the credit card. He doesn't have carry around his credit cards. He only spends what is available in the bank account. we have a budget where we track specifically all these different categories of what we're spending and how much we're earning, and we like compare all the numbers. And we have this app called Nerd Wallet, which one of my business friends recommended, that all of our accounts and cards and everything funnel through the app, so I can see everything that both of us have spent on any account, and so that I know that I'm adding all of those things to our budget spreadsheet, so we're all squared away and there's nothing like hidden that we forgot to put in or whatever. Yeah, just really trying to live within our means and make the sacrifices that we need to.
Okay, I love it. Fantastic work. All right, Rivka, let's go to you. What else stood out to you?
Okay. So one of the things in this financial section that I appreciated, because this was something that Burke and I did agree on, both of us really, really do not like being in debt.
Yes.
Just hate it. And so we have spent a lot of time and energy, and we did in the earlier, well, we spent a lot of time broke and getting debt because of med school for the first a little while. And then once he was done with med school and residency and got a job, we just went after it. It was something we were very unified on, and something that I found, well, I think we both found to be very unifying. Like when they talk about like an increased intimacy in marriage, because we were like, we had this same goal. We were focused. We celebrated together. We were frustrated together, you know, and got our med school loans paid off. And that was I just felt like a big, glorious win for us, you know, to have that done. And so I appreciate that they're talking about finances in this talk, which overarchingly is about how to become more unified in your marriage and why that's important.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so one of my favorite quotes that is in this talk, and it's one that I remember the first time I heard it, I mean, long time ago, and I was just like, what lights a fire under you, from President J. Reuben Clark, who was an apostle, but also lawyer and involved in that stuff. So here's this quote: "Debt never sleeps, nor sickens, nor dies. It never goes to the hospital. It works on Sundays and holidays. It never takes a vacation. It is never laid off work. It buys no food. It wears no clothes. It is unhoused. It has neither weddings nor births nor deaths. It has no love, no sympathy. It is as hard and soulless as a granite cliff. Once in debt, it is your companion every minute of the day and night. You cannot shun it or slip away from it. You cannot dismiss it. And whenever you get in its way or cross its course or fail to meet its demands, it crushes you." Which is intense. And both Burke and I felt that burden under the weight of hundreds of thousands of dollars of debt, you know, for school. And so I appreciate that this is brought up, one, because we did have that experience of a shared goal to get out from under that brought us together. And two, because as counsel for especially young people going into marriages, and, you know, especially if you're coming out from your parents' homes who, you know, didn't buy that home the day they were married, but sometimes you feel like this is what we deserve. Right?
Right.
This is the level that we should live at. And it becomes very easy, you know, that old saying of keeping up with the Joneses, but it could be whatever. If your worth is tied into it and your ego is tied into it, it is very easy to begin selling yourself to reach, like selling yourself to these debt people, whether it's credit cards or whatever it is, to put on the facade of having more than you do, or living a life that is greater than the one you can currently provide. It's a dangerous, easy to understand, slippery slope, but you suffocate with the things that you have. With the things that you portray that you have, they're actually owned by someone else.
Yeah.
Because they're owned by someone else, because you owe this burden of a debt to whoever it is that, you know, and it's always there. It never just goes away. Whether it's student loans or, you know, any of those things, you have to, credit cards, if you buy too much house or you buy too much car or something like that, it is a dangerous thing, and it will cause problems quickly in a marriage.
Okay, love that section on debt. Thanks for all that. Pay off your debts as quickly as you can. Deanna just broke into a cold sweat thinking about her mortgage while listening to this. So, well, Burke, let's move on to you. We covered stuff from each of the 3 sections. So really, whatever you want to talk about here, what else stood out to you?
All right, I'm going to continue on with the finance one because this is one of my favorites. But he says here, do without, say no. Your head can be held high even if your clothing is not the most stylish nor your income the most regal. It can be held high for the simple reason that it is not bent or bowed with the relentless burden of debt. And Rivka addressed this very well. The one aspect of it that has been very apparent to me, and especially the last few years with all the changes I've made, is a lot of people will say, you know, with your good debt, reasonable mortgage, student loans, all that kind of stuff, that there's no reason, especially at low interest rates, to pay them off quickly. There's something to be said for that, I suppose. Mathematically, that makes sense. However, so many of the decisions I made in the last 3 years, regardless of how strong the prompting would have been, I could not have done if I had huge expenses every month hanging over my head. I just couldn't have done it. There's no way. It would have been too scary. And because I didn't have debt, I had the ability to take risk I couldn't otherwise take. And that's some of the freedom that comes from having your finances in order. Having adequate for your needs and even a lot does not, how do I say this? Accomplishing all of your financial goals does not automatically come with happiness, but it does automatically come with freedom.
Amen. I love it. You guys are a great example to me and Deanna of keeping your finances in order, and we're striving to live up to the O'Neills by paying off our debts instead of buying what you have. We're trying to pay down.
Let me introduce you to something called geographic arbitrage. That is the idea that you could make a lot of money with identical incomes just by moving somewhere cheaper, which is the opposite of what you just did.
I know. And I know. Yes.
But also, you have to do what God tells you to do.
Indeed. Certainly, we didn't have to. We felt like this was the house for us too, and prompted even to buy it, but we could have bought a smaller place or whatever. There's a lot of, we certainly own up to our own choices in this, but we felt prompted to leave Wisconsin when we were about 1 year away from paying off our mortgage and being all debt free, not just consumer debt or school debt, like house and everything, no debt, nothing, nada. And we're far from that now, but that's okay. At the same time, nothing that you own is really yours anyway, even after you pay off the bank. It's all the Lord's. Yep. That is no justification for going into further debt. That's not what I'm trying to say, but we felt strongly we were supposed to be here where we are now, and we just got to make different choices in our current situation to get back to where we were to pay off that debt. So awesome. I love it. Let's finish up, I think. Let's do invitations, and we'll go to Lawson to start with our invitations and promised blessings.
Sweet. There's only a small section of this paragraph about finances that has not been read, and I'm going to read it because it's a pretty clear invitation. Pay your tithes and offerings first. Blessing. No greater financial protection can be offered you. Invitation. Then simply budget what is left the rest of the month. Make do with what you have, do without, say no, and whatnot. That Burke already said.
Burke, that is a great invitation. You reminded me. I listened to a lot of Dave Ramsey in med school, and the biggest thing I learned from him was not any technique or any math about interest rate. It was that all decisions are emotional decisions. And so the math may not, you might go to a financial advisor. Our mortgage was like a 2.75% or some insanely low thing. We hit, no, it's 3.7 and our school loan was 2.7. Anyways, they were both really low. We absolutely timed it perfectly by accident. We did nothing to do it. It just happened that way. And we had people tell us, don't pay that off. Don't pay that off. You can invest and get more. And we said, we don't care. This is a spiritual, emotional decision. Debt, we don't want to be enslaved to anything, chained to anything, stuck to anything, driven by anything. We want to be free 100%, like you said, Burke. So, all right. And one way to do that, pay your tithes and offerings. I love it. Okay, Alia, let's go to you next.
All right. Pat talks a lot about, getting sealed in the temple and having the strength of Christ in your union and bringing his power into the relationship. And Elder Holland says, he gives this awesome promise. He says, the power which binds us together in righteousness is greater than any force which might try to separate us. And then he says, that is the power of covenant theology and the power of priesthood ordinances. That is the power of the gospel of Jesus Christ. So the invitation here is to invite the power of covenant theology into your relationship, not just by getting sealed at the altar in God's home, but by living righteously and inviting, God into everything you do. And the power, or the promise, is that power will bind you together against all odds, and that no force in the world can separate you. And I really like that phrase, covenant theology, because that's like the core of our theology is covenant. And so there's real tangible power and upliftment that comes from making covenants with God and each other.
Yeah, the theology of covenants didn't just start with President Nelson saying the covenant path. We've been a covenant
Started
people
with
forever.
Adam and Eve.
Yeah, exactly. Love it. Okay, Rivka, let's go to you.
Toward the end of the talk, I don't know who's talking now, Pat. She says, no greater blessings can come to your union than some of the troubles and challenges you'll face if you'll rev up your motor and bear straight ahead through lightning and thunder and turbulence and all. And I think I love that she talks about like the blessings. Sometimes we talk about the blessings will come, when you've gone through that, but she's calling the troubles and challenges you face the blessings. These are the blessings that you will have. And I feel like I was just having a talk with my son, who's getting married next month, and talking about in like that very quintessential old married couple way to a young couple who's almost kidding. Don't miss the struggle. Don't try to avoid the struggle when you're starting out, because there is very little that will bind you together than struggling together, right? Like you're in the trenches and you're depending on each other, and maybe you're struggling because you're in school and broke for a while, and maybe you're struggling because one or both of you comes from difficult family backgrounds and you're trying to figure out how to have a good marriage when you've never seen one. Or maybe you're struggling because you have health issues straight away out of the gate. And there's a lot of things that can happen when you're just learning how to be married to someone and live with someone and figure life out together. And so looking back on it, I can see the value of those early years that Burke and I had together when we were broke and exhausted and running after kids and doing a bunch of school. And again, sort of quintessentially looking back, I would say I would not give any of that up. I wouldn't change it because of how it shaped us as people and how it began to shape our marriage. So I just really appreciated that she acknowledges that the blessings come in your union. Like some of those blessings are the troubles and the challenges that you face. Don't discount those. Waiting for blessings. Sometimes those are the blessings.
That's a tough one.
It is. Mm-hmm.
But true. But so true. Those refining moments, not just in our marriage, Rivka, but we've found amazing friends that we love everywhere we go, but there's something special about going through those early years together where you form really tight friendships as well.
Yeah.
Not just your marriage, but your external friendships just from that fire.
Later, well, right after this, President Holland said, paraphrasing James Thurber in one of the best and simplest definitions of love I've ever given, love is what you go through together. That counts not only for husbands and wives, but also parents and children, brothers and sisters, roommates and friends, missionary companions, and every other human relationship worth living. Love, like individuals, is tested by the flame of adversity. If we are faithful and determined, it will temper and refine us, but it will not consume us.
Love that.
That is super interesting because the way that's phrased implies that love isn't real unless it goes through something. A little bit like how faith isn't proved until the trial of your faith. You know, like God knew what Abraham was going to do, and he still asked him to do something just so that the faith could be proven real and not just like a theoretical. That's super
Interesting.
I just made that connection right now. I read that quote earlier, but I didn't even. Wow.
Yeah.
Amazing. I love that. That's a really good way to frame love. Fantastic. Okay, Burke. Burke, you can talk for 20 minutes. You deserve all the time. You can say whatever you want. Just like monologue. Don't let it fester.
Well, this wasn't actually framed as an invitation, but I think it is. And this is Pat quoting President Kimball, I believe. And you've all probably heard this quote before, but it's worth listening to again. Soulmates are fiction and an illusion. And while every young man and young woman will seek with all diligence and prayerfulness to find a mate with whom life can be most compatible and beautiful, here's where I think it gets really important and more like an invitation, yet it is certain that almost any good man and any good woman can have happiness and a successful marriage if both are willing to pay the price. I think the invitation there is be willing to pay the price. While, of course, also acknowledging both of you have to pay the price. This is not blame for people who's, have not managed to find that partner or the marriage has ended. It is a hard thing. And like Rivka said, she and I are not the same people we were when we got married. We're just not. I mean, I think we talked about it a little bit, but there was an article I read on Substack, just a personal essay somebody wrote a couple of months ago that was really down on marriage. And it basically said, some people just luck out. And as they grow through their marriage, they grow in the same way. And that's why their marriage works. And I was
nihilistic.
like, yeah, so nihilistic. I was like, and I was like,
that's not going to happen. And you just stay in marriage until it's time for you to part.
Exactly.
That was basically
like
the
until you're
whole
ready to
point.
bail. And I was like, what a sad way to look at marriage. Marriage is an opportunity for two people to come together and purposefully build something that is greater than them both. So,
Love it.
Pay the price. It is, I can tell you, absolutely worth it.
Love it.
Yeah.
That really is a fantastic way to end the podcast. So thank you for that, Burke. What a great testimony at the end. Pay the price. Little side note that I was thinking about as I read this. I hear a lot about the culture in the church and people saying we put our leaders on pedestals or we are perfectionists or the only thing that seems okay in the church is a perfect family with perfect little children all wearing suits and dresses and always well behaved and the couples never fight or whatever. And here we have, again, 40 years ago, this is before like authenticity culture and vulnerability culture came to the forefront. 40 years ago, the president of BYU with his wife in front of all the kids sitting there teasing each other for walking 50 steps ahead and running late and all these things. Like they literally said, the thing that irritates me the most about my spouse is out loud in front of thousands of people and recorded for all time in eternity. And saying, follow the rhythms of life. And starting by saying, we don't want to make you feel left out if you're single, but we are talking about marriage. Like all these things that seem so common now where we're like more sensitive to them. Maybe the culture hadn't caught on, but the leaders were doing it. And it's not new. And they were good examples then of we're regular people. We're trying the best we can. Yes, we happen to reach the point where we're president of BYU, but we were at one time young hayseeds from St. George, to use their words. And we just kept trying as hard as we could to love each other and do the best we could. And just a great example of being regular people who follow the Lord's will. And I felt some sadness reading this, knowing that Pat has since passed on. And Elder Holland's out there by himself fighting the good fight, showing up to give talks with oxygen, can't, barely talk, barely stand, talking about 1 foot in the grave and the other on a banana peel. But what lives they've lived, and incredible examples of imperfect but striving disciples of Jesus Christ. So that'll do it for today. After this is General Conference. So everybody get ready. Do what you need to do to be prepared to receive the words of the prophet, to hear things that will prompt you to greater relationship with Jesus Christ and with your spouse and your kids, and just continuing to press us all forward. So
Today in state conference, our stake president, sorry to interrupt you.
I was on a roll.
I know, I'm sorry. I want to say this before conference.
Wow.
Our stake president specifically invited us to commit now with our spouse, because we are in a married stake, but whoever you are, whichever family you're in, he said to commit now to follow whatever invitation the prophet gives in this coming conference, before we even know what it is.
Wow.
So,
Wow.
anyways,
Guess I can't listen to conference now. But.
yeah. So, anyways,
10 seasons of doing invitations and promise blessings. And Burke's like, can't listen to God.
can't do it.
Do it.
I love it.
He's going to ask me to do something hard.
Yeah,
Just know it.
that is true. Knowing
Like,
the
be a
Lord and knowing
peacemaker.
President Nelson. Love it. Thank you, Burke. All right, Alia, tell the people how they can get a hold of us.
You can email us at wordsoftheprophets@gmail.com, or you can comment and message on our Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube at Words of the Prophets Podcast.
All right. Thanks for joining us today. And until next time, keep the faith.